Welcome to a meeting of Cabinet on Monday, the 15th of September. A warm welcome also to Councillor Ziegler, who's standing in for Councillor Marsh, the leader of the Conservative group, who I understand is enjoying a holiday in Scotland, and also to Councillor Cornish, leader of the Green group, and Councillor Bates, who's observing our proceedings today. Let's start with a declaration of interest from members in respect of any item on the agenda. Do we have any? There are none. To receive apologies for absence, we are all here, present and correct. Then item 3, to be agreed by general affirmation, the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 30th of June 2025. Are they agreed? Agreed, thank you. And then item 4, to consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none, which brings us to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the parking strategy and action plan. So before we open up that to officers and members of the Cabinet, can I invite, firstly, Councillor Ziegler, if you've got any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Eggleston. Obviously, you're aware of my correspondence with the Cabinet member, and I do appreciate that whilst there's been a wide consultation of the implementation of charging in the villages, I think that the specific issue in Hurst is perhaps not as well addressed, although I do know that you and Councillor Hobbs did go and meet the chair of the parish council to understand their concerns a few months ago. My points are not about the principle of charging, but actually the impact of the implementation in Hurst, where there's a systemic issue really around roads and parking capacity, which actually creates some very specific issues. The pricing approach that's been proposed is welcomed, and its concessions, even if the detail is a little bit incomplete, exactly what you get in terms of 1 hour for your disc. But there are 2 points that I would like to make in relation to the paper. The first is that the finance is only really about the cost of the discount and doesn't really give any idea about the return on investment of the technology, which obviously when implemented in some smaller car parks, such as Brown Twins, could be relatively significant. Which is obviously an important point. The second one is really the main concern continues to be about the knock-on impacts, particularly around employment and the ability and the cost for employees that are not those in the NHS or other such public services, and that particularly means the High Street and the school, St Lawrence School being an academy. And I'm very conscious that public consultation will not actually be over until sort of February, March 26, just before implementation. So given those points, my question is, will the council consider delaying the implementation specifically in Hurstpier Point beyond May 26 if there remain reasonable concerns that it may exacerbate the risks around both health and safety, of which there are some concerns due to parking, or damage to the ability of St Lawrence School and the High Street to retain staff? Both of which I think are those concerns which exist and are reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we can probably pick those up in the debate and when the officers speak to those issues. If not, I'm sure we could arrange to give you a note sometime after the meeting to set out what we're doing. Thank you. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Councillor Eggleston. In a similar vein, actually, I think where the car parks affect business owners, I wonder how concessions for business owners might work in relation to the other concessions that have been mentioned in the paper. And along the similar lines also, I cannot see the mitigation for the displacement of cars that may be affected by this. And lastly, will there be a review period after implementation to assess whether the new approach is working as intended? And if it is, what the impact of that is? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cornish, and again, I think we can pick that up when the officers deliver the report, or I'm sure Councillor Hobbs might have something to say on all of those. So if I go first of all to Simon Hughes to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, colleagues, the report represents the significant work that this council has done on our parking strategy, which was adopted by the council in December 2020. And most recently, we've progressed it through February council meeting and our March and May cabinet meetings, as you'll recall. And decisions were taken there to introduce charging in larger village car parks and specifically address transparent concessionary charging for car parks, including in large village car parks. The report covers three key areas. Firstly, it establishes transparent concessionary charging that supports those most in need, residents, charity workers, healthcare workers, and so on, with subsidy ranging from 50 to 75%, ensures fairness and accessibility. Paragraph 20 in Appendix 1 set out the proposed concessionary permits. Secondly, it introduces investment in car parks that will improve customer experience, for example, through digital permits and more efficient enforcement, and that is a key area. It's important to think of our car parking service not solely as car parks, but also around enforcement for inconsiderate and dangerous parking within our communities. And that allows us to focus on that critical on-street safety issues. Thirdly, it provides essential data intelligence for future car park planning and infrastructure development so that we can look at the data about what is happening in our car parks, what is happening in enforcements, and then review both our tariffs and enforcement actions in light of that, essentially in real time, but certainly frequently, so that we can work with West Sussex Highways so our strategy for parking meets community needs. Appendix 3 sets out the proposed timeline for large villages, and we're working with colleagues in West Sussex Highways to manage this timeline and also identify options for investments in these car parks, but also in their wider estate. Recommendations are set out in paragraph 12. And so thank you, Chairman, and open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'm going to go first of all to the portfolio holder, Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you. I'm pleased today to be able to receive this report and see that it addresses many of the issues that have been raised to me by residents in relation to our village car parking proposals since they were published in March of this year. Residents who don't have on-street parking outside their houses and who want to be able to use the council's village car parks during the daytime to park their vehicles. Those who give their time freely to charity work. Those who work for the NHS and who may need to make come-and-go visits to Essentials doctor's surgery, for example, as we see in Hurstbeer Point. The full suite of concessions has been written so that it can be applied across the council's full car park portfolio. But what we must remember is that the devil is in the detail. As we have discussed previously, our car parks are there to provide a service to many different users. Those who need to park short-term, those who require long-term, those grab-and-go shoppers, dropping the kids off, those who work in our towns and villages. The application of these concessions, the number we issue per location, has to form part of the overall balance of our car parks, so as not to affect the vitality of our villages. For example, we cannot afford to fill our car parks with long-term season ticket holders, leaving no space for shoppers. That detail will need to be worked up by our officers over the next few months, as will the detail around the technology that supports this and the town centre parking. We're clear that Mid Sussex needs to forge forward and lead other councils in car park technology, having to send parking enforcement officers to check every car for unpaid parking stays when the tech has existed for years to reduce this manual burden is simply a waste of manual resource that can be spent ensuring that our streets are safer, managing on-street parking offences such as double yellow and single yellow line abuse, parking on zigzags outside schools, for example. This is a technology project plan, and I want to see how the timing of that project plan can actually be improved. Can we get to these solutions quicker than May 2026? And how can we accelerate the rollout of that technology in next year's budget year to deliver it in far more car parks? Ease of finding a parking space is the most important thing for a driver who wants to visit our towns and villages. We need to do all we can to help that. This government is finally promising us a nationwide car parking app. Let's embrace that at Mid Sussex, make our car parks easy to use, and continue to support sustainable development in our villages and towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak before I chip in? Councillor Anne-Marie Cook.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you for all the work that's gone into this to get to this far. I'd like to say that it's acknowledged in particular that the circumstances in the villages are properly provided for. And I'm pleased that implementation has been deferred to enable the technology for digital season tickets and the various concessions be available. I know that the exact workings of the scheme are yet to be defined, but I would just like to highlight the need for the free hour to be available twice in one day, in particular regarding the school run, perhaps with a no return policy within 3 or 4 hours. And I do actually think people need the full hour because, for example, in Linfield, some people have one child at Blackthorns, one child at Linfield, and they've got to cover both, so it takes a bit of a while. Regarding the volunteer concessions, it's a bit of a picky point, but I'd just like to flag up that some organisations, such as the Linfield Repair Cafe, have volunteers who need to park nearby for at least 4 years and with tools and other equipment to carry. But some of these organisations are not necessarily registered charities, which is how their concession is defined in parts of the report. But in this case, for example, are community interest companies. So I would hope for some flexibility in what defines a charitable worker and to have the flexibility for these people only coming in once a month, but there's quite a lot of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. I support the more consistent approach to parking concessions detailed in the report, noting they follow the previous agreed strategy of the Council and indeed West Sussex County Council's own integrated parking strategy. I believe the proposed concessions provide a fair and proportionate way of meeting many of the concerns expressed during the recent consultation, and I'm sure with further refinement we can satisfy many of the existing users of the car parks, whilst also ensuring that the Council is able to levy reasonable charges to manage demand and address the cost of provision, as well as contributing towards the cost of increased enforcement to tackle inconsiderate parking, as mention has been made. The technological solutions proposed will provide smarter, more flexible charging, and I would hope we could implement them in time across the whole estate to maximise the availability of spaces to those who require them and obtain a greater understanding of parking needs. We can be more flexible and more responsive to the needs of business in terms of their customers and to the wider public. So I therefore support the resolution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. A few comments, mainly on the technology side, questions within that. But can I start by just commenting that I don't see Imberhorn Lane in the list of exempt car parks? Before the Squinstead community, Conservative community on Facebook get going, can we confirm that we've got no intention to start charging for Imberhorn Lane? Just clear that one off. Very pleased to see progress towards the concessions and clearly previously where we've discussed Queensway car park in particular, the focus has been on how we maximise that. But I have to say that the progress to my mind seems to be positively glacial, although I have to say in a warming world glacial may not be the best word to use anymore. I was expecting that the technology would have been in the car park coincident with the 10 pence rise, which we are bringing in October, and clearly that's drifted back. I understand that there's been substantial requirements creep in this project. This, to my mind, started off as a look at how we bring technology into Queensway car park. It's moved, and there's now 3 main car parks, one in each town involved, and it's a fundamental underpinning of being able to bring forward the changes that we want to implement in the villages. Now, I have a concern that as a seasoned project manager, when I look at the Gantt charts which are inside in the report, that I tend to regard what I would term to be a waterfall project, meaning that you do A before you do B and then you do C, is that you can have problems with achieving the timeline, because when you get to C, you discover that you didn't do A quite as well as you meant to, and B takes longer than you would do. In that respect, I would highlight that as a member of Worth Parish Council, I've been trying to work on getting a new car park on Bowers Place for about 5 years, and the highways have been virtually impossible to work with on that in terms of their changing requirements on almost all aspects of the implementation. So what I'm really sort of seeking here is really to hear a bit more confidence that we are going to achieve this timeline, noting in particular that it is fundamental to bringing in a raft of other things. And just, I think that is the key point, that I looked at that and I thought everything coming together in April looks to me to be an extremely high risk. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I go to Simon? So on 2 points. One, just to clear up the Imberhorn Lane point, and then secondly on the Gantt chart and the delivery of the technology. Although just before you do, I just note that the corporate plan and budget did include technology rollout into 3 car parks. So we did fix that in the corporate plan, but I'm sure Simon can give us more details on the actual delivery of the technology.
Thank you. Imberhorn Lane's not currently an operational car park. It was identified by the previous council for disposal, so that's why that's not included in the list. On to the timeline. You're absolutely right, and Chairman's absolutely right. Council and Cabinet made a series of decisions that have informed the timeline, and you're correct in saying there is a single dependency in there, which is the legal consultation with West Sussex Highways. What you see in the Gantt chart is the statutory period, so it could be shorter, and therefore what we've shown you is the worst case scenario. We are working with West Sussex Highways and with our technology providers to see what we can shorten and what we can phase, but it is contingent on that legal framework. We're confident that the technology, and this covers the question you asked about the technology, will be tiered, so there is more complex technology in the larger car parks, and then that will be tiered according to the requirements of each individual car park, specifically the larger villages. So in terms of return on investment, it's important to see it's not solely around the income from the car parks, it is also around access to information on how busy those car parks are. So that includes, and I know that we've referred to this before, space availability is critical to things like displacement, it's critical to things like congestion within towns and villages. So being able to have the technology that provides that information on when space is available is critically important. And that technology will provide that in real time, and so that will be fed through to things like the map apps that most people use in order to identify car parks, and then hopefully in the future, any technology that we can work with on West Sussex that identifies where spaces are available. I hope that answers the questions.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, or are you okay?
Just to say that totally agree, it's absolutely what I think is necessary in order to address the, if you like, the parking problems in certainly a town like East Grinstead. But please, let's get there. Let's make sure that we do get there. And as for Imberhorn Lane, just a concern, I saw 40 vehicles in it the other day that clearly, are using it as a council car park, and it does have Mid Sussex on the still up there. So I think I'm not sure if there's any change in legal status on that.
It's still in the order as a car park, but it's not currently in operation, so that's why it's not on the list. We are considering options for that, and we'll be bringing a paper to Cabinet on Imbourne Lane.
Right, thank you. So just to wrap this up with a few comments from me. So really the report, you break the report down into addressing village parking, and in the larger villages, we already have a situation where demand for car parking spaces exceeds supply. So we already have displacement, and what this solution is seeking to address is ensuring that with limited supply, you can get maximum use of those spaces for those people who need them. And of course, in villages, it's much harder because there's there are groups of users who probably, individually could potentially take up the whole of the demand of that car in that car park in certain periods of time. So we're trying with the village parking strategy to come up with, it's not one size fits all by any solution, but we're trying to come up with a strategy which gives the maximum opportunity for the maximum number of groups in the villages. So as Councillor Hobbs has highlighted all of those, but inevitably where demand exceeds supply, you're going to get displacement. You get displacement anyway. I think welcome the view that the charging strategy in itself is not something that should be opposed. And I think what we're doing in the villages, it's in terms of the cost, it is modest. If you look at the price of an annual season ticket in a village, it's works out at less than £1 a day, and the opportunity to provide some spaces for residents who have more cars than they can put on their driveway, or where they don't have a driveway and want to park safely, and balance the needs of parents and carers dropping off children and need a free period of time with those who need a slightly extended stay. So I think what we're doing in the villages is actually smart, and it is reasonable. I think it's we've grown up over the years. I think it would be fair to say with a bunch of ad hoc concessions for a mix of users. So I think documenting what those concessions are and having a consistent policy across the district is a good development. And offering a wide range of discounts for various groups, and I welcome that. And then finally, bringing technology in, and we are, as a district, no question, you compare us to some of our neighbours, we are well behind in terms of using technology intelligently to manage our car parks better. And the fact that we'll have real-time data, and which plays into the ability to flex and review the use of the car parks, in real time, rather than the exhausting process that we currently go through, where we have to physically manually inspect. And I think that means that we are far more fleet of foot, so that charges, so you do get to a position where in a town, for example, you could have different car parking charges in different car parks, because the demand for those spaces is different within an area, not just across the district. So I think we're bringing in a degree of sophistication into this. On Councillor Anne-Marie Cook's comments, I think we could bury ourselves in the weeds in some of the granular detail, and I think that's something that we can sit down with officers, and and where there are some pinch points, we can specifically interrogate those to see whether there is some flexing to do, regarding CICs and CIOs, for example, and how we manage the 1 hour free parking, because we want to try as far as we can. Bearing in mind, I don't think we're ever going to satisfy 100% of the population, but as far as we can, meet the range of needs that exists in the community. So on that note, I will move to the recommendation. So I invite Councillor Hobbs to move the recommendations.
Happy to move a recommendation.
And I'm looking for a seconder.
Seconded,
Councillor
Chairman.
Hobbs. Thank you. So if we now go to the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Which now brings us on to agenda item 6, which is budget management 25-26 quarter 1. I go to Councillor Cornish first. Do you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, firstly, just one point really, but I think it's, I wanted to recognise really that the Q1 reports are very encouraging, and in recognition of the uncertain financial landscape that the council faces, I think our prudent financial position should be applauded. I think the one thing I just wanted to flag, or ask rather, is that is a potential overspend likely to exceed the 100k that was set aside at the year end, especially given the circumstances around our housing supply situation? That was it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Ziegler.
Thank you very much. Yes, only likewise to obviously commend the officers for the work they've been doing, particularly in Treasury Management, which is excellent to see. One point that came to me, which I would be interested to understand because it is sensitive, is I note the deferral of the capital spend set out for the Beadlands GT site. Very conscious of our situation with the district plan and also general pressure on GT site requirements and the concerns that applications have on residents. The deferral of a planned site feels concerning to me, since having adequate capacity is clearly something which would assist us in those other situations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I'll go to Rachel Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update position at quarter 1 across revenue, capital, treasury management and performance. Revenue expenditure is forecasting a small underspend, and just to refer to the reserve of 100,000 set aside for the pressures around planning. At this point, it isn't being forecast, so the underspend takes into account forecast across the council. And Treasury Management is performing well, allowing for 354,000 reserve contribution, supporting the current revenue budget to be proposed to be substituted by Treasury receipts. And this supports the council's ongoing financial robustness. The remaining 200,000 of receipts is proposed to be set aside for the continued work of officers with regard to process efficiency and project support work that they are undertaking. There's an additional capital requirement for fire doors, with the overall programme remaining unchanged, but with some reprofiling into future years to reflect the delivery of those projects, and a small underspend on completed projects. And performance overall remains good. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Simon Hicks, portfolio holder, Rachel, in terms of can you just give a bit more detail on where we reprofile a capital programme, the circumstances around which we do that that work, because it's not the same as deferring something. It's just.
Absolutely, yes. So we take the opportunity regularly when we're doing our monitoring to look at our projects and the delivery around those projects. So recognising that the programme is multi-year, the programme remains unchanged, but we've reprofiled into future years just to reflect that delivery, because we're required to report on capital in year as well as the overall programme.
So let me just understand that. So when we set the corporate plan and budget, that's because we have to fix something at that point. So that's a good estimate of where we believe we can start to deliver a capital project at that period of time. But then in terms of procurement, in terms of specifying what we need to do, you inevitably get some slippage.
Absolutely. It's the best knowledge you have at a point in time, and then you update it for current delivery.
Thank you. So now goes Son Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. I endorse the report and the proposed recommendations, noting that the projected year-end outcome for the revenue budget is virtually on target. I think we can also be thankful that the continuing high returns from Treasury Management has been mentioned. That means that the budgeted draw for the full year from General Reserve does not need to be utilised. And well, this is early in the financial year, but I would expect further significant Treasury income, which can be used to support the existing demands on services or to bolster our general reserves. I note our staff team are grappling with a number of complex projects. Implementation of the parking strategy has been mentioned, but the council also has the Martlets redevelopment, the draft district plan, simpler recycling and local government reform all on its agenda, all of which require careful navigating and the potential need for additional resource to ensure officers can draw on the required expertise if needed. This is particularly important given the implementation of changes in local government funding next year, which, as the report highlights, is likely to leave the council significantly worse off. And therefore, we need to maximise general reserves to ensure we're able to support services through what may be a difficult transition to the new funding regime. Additionally, local government reorganisation also provides a further complication, particularly looking forward in the possibility of recruitment and retention of staff, which we need to be aware of. We should therefore thank staff for their continued strong performance, despite facing these headwinds. And although performance indicators show a marginal increase in adverse indicators, I note, as highlighted in the report, the specific reasons for these are being addressed, and we can therefore continue to be satisfied with the council's overall performance. I therefore propose the resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anne-Marie Cook.
I'm very happy to second this recommendation, and just quickly to thank the finance team and inside and outside the organisation, the Treasury Management team as well, for putting us in this good position, albeit early in the year. But yeah, good to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you. Very pleased to see the financial performance is on track, and thank you to officers for firstly for the estimates being so good, and secondly for sort of the outturn sits right on it. My colleague Councillor Hicks, what was it you said? You said it'd be a difficult transition. I have to say that having recently seen the first quarter outturn for the County Council and their predictions for the outcome of Fair Funding Review, I think difficult is at the very lower end of the scale as we start to merge all those things together. Just one observation on the, which I think sadly sits in my area, which is the development. Lost it at the moment, but I see that we are down on the target for development management and the number of appeals which we are losing at the present time. This should be a concern to us, that we do need to work with it, and we do need to ensure that decisions where they're taken are going to be well founded and does not lead us into further problems. Otherwise, obviously, we will start to be threatened with things like special measures and that capability being taken away from us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hobbs, anything? Nothing? Okay, just a couple of comments from me. Councillor Hicks picked up, the looming threat of Fair Funding Review, which we know and have known for some time, but we definitely know now is going to have a significant impact on the latter years of this authority, and then also the impact of local government reorganisation, which, leaving aside the financial consequences of it, the impact it has had on staff resource, not just here, but at all of the other authorities across West Sussex. And I think we should underestimate how that flows into business as usual and all of the other significant projects in which we are engaged as a local authority. And I'm going to do this several times, but I'll start today to thank the officers in this authority who have been working so tirelessly on local government reorganisation, not a policy of our making, a policy of the government's making, but everybody's stepped up to the plate and have performed extraordinarily well in trying to get this underway. We haven't focused on the performance outturn, and obviously there are some red flags in the report. I mean, nothing serious. There's only one comment I'd like to make, because obviously, as a public body, we are susceptible to freedom of information requests, and that's perfectly acceptable that we should have transparency with our residents. Obviously, the number has gone up. I'd be interested to know if they are grouped around a certain number of subjects and group of people, but also, what impact this increase in activity is having on our ability to do other work as well, because clearly it takes officers' time away from other things. I don't know whether Stephen, you've got a comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, I can confirm that FOI requests do take a lot of time and effort for officers to comply and make sure they get them back. What we could do is get some information to you about whether they are grouped and whether there's, what the subjects are, so you can get a sense of what people are asking for. So we can get that to you after the meeting, if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, because obviously, and I've seen it in another place where the council gets targeted with an unreasonable number of freedom of information requests from a single person, and and it can have a detrimental impact upon our delivery of other services. So if you could, I think that would be really useful for us to know. Otherwise, again, I'd like to thank the officers for the good management of our finances. I'm confident that in the way that we manage our finances and our services, that oversight from outside bodies is going to remain as it is, light, because officers do a good job in steering this organisation, and I commend their work. So we have a proposer and a seconder, so I suggest we go to the vote. And that is carried, which then brings us on to the close of the meeting, for there is no other business. Thank you for your attendance, everyone.
Thank you.
Stream's ended.
Thank you.
Thank you for having lost the agenda.